My name is Oluwatosin Azekolawoluwa, and I'm an addiction recovery advocate. And that actually is born of my personal experience from addiction, in that I had an almost 16 years experience with addiction, primarily marijuana, alcohol, and occasionally I also dabbled into synthetic drug use, and also led into cultism at some point, and also my involvement with armed robbery and some other social vices, as it were.
My name is Mr. Shedo Gaura. I am the Ekiti State Commander of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency. I am saddled responsibility of fighting the drug war in Ekiti State. And if I say war, it is not we pick up arms and fight, no. The people who are destroying our children are people that we need to contend with, and we have to fight them so that our people, our children will be free of drugs.
My name is Oyebanji Filani, Honorable Commissioner for Health and Human Services. Drug abuse remains a challenge, not just here in Ekiti, but across the entire country. It has a debilitating effect on our youths, not just on their mental capacity, but their ability to be able to take care of themselves and become productive and contribute to the country's GDP in their future years.
Nationally, we have problems of cocaine coming into the country from abroad. We also have problem of psychedelic drugs that are manufactured in factories that are coming into Nigeria. And recently, the NDLEA has discovered laboratories where synthetic drugs is being produced in Lagos and in Onitsha. And the synthetic drugs is very, very expensive. And so we have, of recent, that coming into Nigeria. And we have the most common drug in Nigeria, which is cannabis sativa. And incidentally, cannabis sativa is grown in Ekiti State, in the thick forest of Ekiti State. So basically in Ekiti, the main problem we have is about the growing of cannabis sativa and the consumption of cannabis sativa by our youth. Having said that, we also discover pockets of cocaine and heroin in Ekiti as a cosmopolitan town and proximity to the gate town of Lagos. We discovered pockets of heroin and cocaine, but primarily in Ekiti it is cannabis sativa. And then we have problems also of tramadol that is widely abused by students, and so basically those are the drugs that are commonly abused in Ekiti State.
I'm Miriam Okrijo, a medical doctor working in Ekiti State Teaching Hospital in the Department of Psychiatry. But when we talk about addiction, there are certain things that contribute to that. The personality type is one thing to consider. The biological system of individual is another thing to consider. When you talk about the personality type, there are some people who are more, they bond easily with things and they find it difficult to break out of certain things. While there are some people who are just like, in quotes, like if you call them the sanguines, they really just move about and not really bound. They never really get bounded to anything. They can't even stay in a particular place for that long. So people who are like on the melancholic side, they have the ability or the tendency to get addicted. Then when you talk about the biological system again, we're all made with different genes and different things. So there are certain receptors present in some people that, once you take this particular drug, you like the feeling and you want more and more of it.
Most people that dabbled into drug abuse might not actually planning to going into criminality, but then of a truth, because by the time you start getting involved with the drugs, you will need to feed the habit, and more often than not, you get involved with criminality as a result of that. Maybe it starts with petty thefts, petty stealing, then much more into armed robbery, as the case may be, and other such other vices, as it were.
Well, today you have a cocktail of drugs that the young people indulge in. You have sushi, you have the tramadol that students take. They say it keeps them awake so that they can read throughout the night. And then you have a cocktail of drugs soaked inside hot drinks, laced with cannabis, tramadol, and all sorts of things for them to take to keep awake and to do funny things. So it's not one drug that is involved here. You have 1, 2, 3, 4 drugs that are being abused by the youth. And it is worrisome to us because these things are very addictive. And once you start taking, stopping becomes a problem.
Many times out there in the society, we see an addict and we feel a sense of repulsion. But then we often forget that the addiction itself or drug abuse itself might just simply be a product of an inner issue. In my own case, I grew up in a sort of dysfunctional home, in the sense that my father was not around. He was out of the country. I didn't even get to know him until I was about 13 years old. And my mom, who was there, incidentally, I'm an only child. And so my mom, who was around, she was more of a career woman. And she'd been working career 9-to-5 jobs, so most times, in fact, 8 to 5, and even more times, maybe she would have even left home as early as 7 o'clock. So most times she wasn't around, and there was that sense of loneliness. So all that time, I had quite a number of free time on my hand, and after school, we would just go hang out somewhere. I drank, I smoked, even gone visiting the brothels with prostitutes and all of that. But when I come back home, I would have freshened up, and because at that point I wasn't totally engrossed in devices, in the menace as it were, so it was still manageable till it began to boomerang and it was unmanageable afterwards.
Anybody that is lost to drugs is lost forever, and to take one person out of drugs, it's a Herculean task. It takes a lot of trouble to do that. I got into this work not by accident, because I wanted it. And I wanted it because of the experience I've had, personal experience with drugs. Personal in the sense that my elder sister is married and to a big man and has children that are into drugs. The first one is about 40 years now. He dropped out of school. The second one too is 30-something years old. He also dropped out of school and they are doing nothing now. And when I looked at these children, something knocked on my mind. You have to do something to save the youth of this country. You cannot just sit back and relax and allow the youth of this country to get destroyed. That is the motivation that got me into NDLA and is moving me up to today. Because I feel saddened when I see young men getting involved in drugs. Because when you get involved in drugs, your future is destroyed.
From 2008 to 2013, every year I was in that recovery mode, but every year I would come out of that lifestyle, but every year I would still be forced to go back to it. Why? Because one thing about that lifestyle is the fact that it has also messed up the mind. So there has to be a lot of personal development that has to be worked in, much more than someone who is not or has not been involved with such lifestyle. Everybody all over the world, everybody has some measures of personal development that we all have to be. The thing with drugs, as it were, is that it begins to play on your mind. You begin to see life from a different perspective. For instance, what would inform someone selling his property, a family property, to finance his habits is because the fact that the mind is no longer in a right frame of mind, and that was also my case.
The best thing is to prevent the occurrence of drug addiction. And when we talk about prevention, we tend to go through, like, it's a community work. It involves almost everybody. So we can group it into the family, school, and then the community. So when we're talking about the family, that's involving the parents. So parents giving their children drug education, it's not being a forbidden topic to be discussed in the house. Then also being able to create a homely environment where a child can come into a home and discuss whatsoever problem they are facing.
The NDLEA itself, it's not about catching people, prosecution. No. The NDLEA has more than that. The NDLEA is a human based organization. And we also understand that people, for whatever reasons, by accident, due to peer group pressure, due to influences from outside, get into drugs. And the people are always wanting to assist us to see that we work together to rid the state of drugs.
For me, I would want to encourage us as youth of Ekiti State. As we know, Ekiti stands for honor, stands for prestige, and so much social good all over the world, and we take pride in that. And so for me, because of the fact that I have also been down the route of drug abuse, I would want to advise youth out there, please don't dabble into drug abuse, because you never could tell what route is going to take you through.
The National Drug Law Enforcement Agency is an agency that works with time. The drugs we are looking for, it's not drugs that it's big. These are drugs that can be flushed. And so that is why the surprise element. And we cannot announce in the neighborhood that we are coming to a raid in your. If we do that, then there's no point. We should have us stay in our office and go to sleep.
My name is Father Ray Isaac of the Operational Department. In handling our operation, we always have it in a firm way, but we will take it to be on the civil side, because the drug war is not all that easy. But the situation is not to fight or harass anybody. What we are just trying to do is to just make Ekiti a drug-free state. Yeah, we want to at least to retrieve every drugs from every youth, and to make them believe they can do something better with their lives more than that of drugs. That is the job of NDLEA. We are very friendly, and we always try to be civil in every of our operational endeavor.
Then there should be more awareness almost everywhere, where people get to know that, okay, get into drug, these are the possible outcome of it. Then community as well. When we are talking about the community, we are talking about churches, we are talking about mosques, we are talking about it takes a community to train a child. So everybody is actually involved in this.
We have a wing that does what we call drug demand reduction. And the unit is basically to educate and sensitize people on the dangers inherent in using drugs. The unit is also responsible with the education in media houses, schools, universities, and so on and so forth. But for one reason or the other, the unit has not been so vibrant because of issue of funding. But the executive governor has promised us that he is going to assist us in that aspect. And General Buba Marwa also has promised that that is going to be one of his strong points during his tenure. And so from now, you will see a more vibrant sensitization, drug education, and enlightenment.
Well, thank God for Beauty for Ashes. Today I'm presently married. I have two amazing sons, and I'm also trying to be a positive influence in the society, which is why I'm also sharing my experience, because this is also part of what I do. I visit schools across Nigeria, and I relate my experiences and also educate about the dangers of drugs. But then I also share from a perspective of the fact that I am a victory, a beacon of hope today, in the sense that if I could come out of that, there is also hope for those that are therein, that yes, recovery also is possible. But for those that have not yet started that pathway, I would tell you, please don't start.
I would like to use this opportunity to encourage every youth out there to desist from this act. A 5 minutes of pleasure or a 3 minutes of pleasure has significant implications on your well-being and on your health. So I would encourage every youth here in Ekiti particularly to desist from using or abusing drugs. They're poisoned and they have effect on your health system.